It hadn't been murder or anything like that.
It hadn't
There
been
was
murder or
nothing
anything
premeditated
like that.
in that sense.
There was
It
nothing
really
premeditated
was an
in that
accident.
sense.
It really was an
But it
accident.
felt as if the
But it
universe
felt
had
as if the
offered up an
universe had
opportunity.
offered up an opportunity.
Like a giant hand had reached down from the sky and said, "Here, take her out, and all your problems." It was a beautiful October day. They had driven home from school in stony silence. The fallout of Erica's boyfriend's betrayal was still a fresh wound. She had parked the car and was gathering her things, and then realized she needed to move it to the street. Their mother wasn't home yet, and she would need access to the garage. She threw it into reverse and immediately felt a dull thud, a heavy tap. Instinctively, she slammed on the brakes, and then she let them up. She let the car roll backwards, feeling the satisfying rocking as it ran right over her sister and accomplished what she dreamt of so many times. It was shocking, both what had happened and the sense of peace that she felt about it. Of course, the aftermath wasn't pretty, particularly the immediate aftermath. She had always felt that she had a strong stomach, but seeing the remains of Hartwin's face identical to hers in smithereens on the driveway was enough to make her vomit before she even dialed 911. Paige's primal scream when she showed up moments later, ambulances already surrounding the house. Okay, she did feel bad about that. Whatever you could say about Paige hating Madeline, she couldn't help but feel empathy for her own mother. Then there had been the funeral. The abysmally low number of people in attendance, it wasn't hard to figure out why. What would they say? Sorry for your loss. The awkward and uncomfortable appearance of her father, who patted her shoulder like she was a horse in a stable, a horse he was a little bit wary of. He barely spoke to her, only stared at the casket. She swore she saw tears
When Paige
dripping.
would finally get her settled and
Before
carefully
he
place
left
her
all
down,
those years
she
ago,
rarely got
their
as
father
far as
had
the
made it
nursery
no
door
secret
before
that
Madeline's
Erica was his
blood-curdling
favorite.
cries began
Paige,
again,
at that
often
time,
waking Erica
was
as
still
well.
trying to perpetuate the notion that
Paige
she
would
loved her
want to sob
daughters
on the
equally.
floor.
But
She
Andy
was
had
so
little
absolutely
patience for
depleted.
that.
Madeline
Erica
was
the
an
one he
infant who
played
made
with,
Paige
the one he
understand
took
why
along
shaken
for
baby
Sunday
syndrome
errands,
was a thing.
the one whose
As a
ears he
toddler,
pulled quarters from in an embarrassing dad joke way. Still, it was bizarre to see him standing over the casket, crying. It wasn't even open. She had half expected him to stick around. Maybe with her sister out of the way, the three of them could form a nice, normal family. She was nearly 18, but she still fantasized about the life she could have had if it hadn't been so streaked with all the hatred. A mom and a dad who loved each other and adored her, and that was it. No sister. She could picture her whole future, Christmas dinners with the three of them together, her wedding day with both parents walking her down the aisle together, a happy life, but that was not to be. And he split faster than he had the first time. He hadn't even come to the interment at the cemetery. Rain was beginning to fall now, and she thought it was time to go home. She really didn't want to, because the biggest secret that she kept was that she'd felt closer to her sister in the year that had passed since she'd run her over than she had all her life. She felt a sense of aliveness, connection whenever she visited the grave. Sometimes, she was almost a bit regretful. Maybe that connection meant that some way, somehow, they could have overcome their differences. Maybe her sister had just been playing the role she was cast in, after all. Or maybe it meant they were not so different after all. As the rain began to fall harder, Erica traced her fingers through Madeline's name. It was a ritual she did each time she said goodbye. She traced the name, she whispered it into the darkness, and she leaned over and kissed the chilled, wet stone once more before standing up. It was funny. If it had been the other way around, if Madeline had crushed Erica with her car, everyone would have assumed it was on purpose. But Erica, no one would ever suspect that she'd had a moment to think, a moment when she could have stopped the trajectory of what was about to happen. And if they did suspect that moment existed, they would never guess that Erica would have taken her foot off the brake purposefully, intently. Not Erica, who volunteered at the homeless shelter and dutifully rinsed her toothpaste down the sink and never had a bad word to say about anyone, even her maniacal, manipulative, psychotic sister. No one would ever know. And there was a sense of peace now. At least she didn't have to watch her back all the time, always wondering what Madeline was up to. The space gave Erica time to think about things. The amount of energy that had been spent managing, deflecting, and watching out for Madeline's hatred was mind-boggling. Without her there was a lot of space. Maybe that was why she liked the way she felt when she visited the cemetery. It was familiar. Eric leaned over and kissed the gravestone one last time. She felt that jolt of electricity coursing through her. That piece of evil that seemed to come from Madeline. She had always understood Madeline's hatred because she felt the same way. She had just never done anything about it, at least until the day of the accident. No, they were not so different, were they? As Erica turned to leave, another bolt of lightning bent the sky white and purple. Just at that moment, she swore she saw a hand reach out of the ground, grab her ankle, and yank her. When the darkness enveloped her again, she saw she had only tripped over her own 2 feet. There was nothing there. No hand sticking out of the ground. No ruptured earth. Still, Erica was shaken. She scurried out of the cemetery, her heart pounding in a way it hadn't in a whole year. The entire time, she continued to look over her shoulder, expecting to see Madeline. She swore she heard her chortling behind her, but as she reached her car, she realized it was only the thunder. She thought about the day recently, when she'd tripped heading down the front steps of the house. How she'd sworn she felt a hand of her from behind. There was no one there though, and she had chalked it up to needing her morning coffee more than she realized. Now though, Erica wondered, wouldn't that be just like the maniacal, manipulative, psychotic Madeline to be able to cause trouble from beyond the grave? She quickly shook her head, as if to clear that thought away. This was just PTSD from years of abuse, leftover trauma from what she'd done. It was not Madeline. As she threw the car in reverse to turn around and hightail out of the cemetery, she remembered that day in all of its vividness, and she knew she'd done the right thing. There was only so much Madeline could do anymore, being dead and all. Erica was glad she was dead. She was glad she was the one who made it happen. Madeline wasn't the only one who was maniacal, manipulative, psychotic. No, they were not so different after all.